Hello everyone and welcome back for some more freshly brewed drag tea. Today I have with me a lovable former military veteran who charmed us all when he appeared as a guest on Season 5's Makeover Challenge, where he was paired with Jinkx Monsoon. On the show, his vulnerability and humour made us fall in love with him, and he may or may not have killed Judy Garland. I'm super excited for you all to get to know him better and learn what he's been up to since the show. We'll of course be talking all things Drag Race, and I'll be asking some of the amazing questions you all sent in. Please welcome the incredible Dave Lara, aka Fortuna Monsoon.
Hey. I'm really glad that I'm on the channel here. I love this. So ask away.
Thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you so much for agreeing to appear on my show, on my channel. Just to kind of explain for anyone watching this, the way this kind of came about was you actually commented on one of my videos saying, obviously talking about the fact that you were on Drag Race as a guest star on the Makeover Challenge and you had some funny stories. And so I reached out to you and said, do you want to do an interview? And you kindly said yes. So thank you so much for being on my channel. I know everyone was very excited to ask you questions and everything.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So obviously today I thought it would just be great to obviously talk a little bit about your background. Obviously on the show, you were on a challenge that was about making over military veterans. So I thought it'd be interesting just to sort of talk a bit about your background in the military. And then of course, we'll get into Drag Race and sort of hear some of your great stories, which I'm sure you have lots of. Yes. So first of all, I was wondering if you could just sort of give me a bit of background, how you got involved in the military.
It was actually a very sad story in that my mom was a single mom after my father left us. And she died when I was 17. And my little brother went to live with my dad. He was still around, but not in our life. And so I wasn't going to go into foster care at 17. So I had a judge declare me an adult, and I joined the Navy. And my plan was the Vietnam War was going on at that time. And my plan was to be on a ship and not have to fight in combat, which it didn't work out quite that way.
And so what year would that have been roughly?
I joined in 1965. Yes, I'm very old. I tell people that I was born in the first half of the last century. Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was. You do the math, you'll see. So I joined in 1965, and I was kicked out for being gay in 1970.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's awful to think that happened back then. And I think the military has come some way forward in progress, but can you sort of, what was it like being gay in the military in the 60s?
This was even before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was a stupid policy in the first place. It was illegal. There was during that period there were laws against being gay. Or you could be deemed crazy, but it was really criminal. And I had to be in the closet, obviously. I did know that I was gay at that point, so it was not easy, but it was also the beginning of the gay rights movement, and it was through some of the actions of us in the military that created the world that you live in today. I am going to take total credit for the gay rights movement. So there. When I was in the service, despite the horrors of war, I managed to make a group of gay friends that we bolstered each other through the war. We acknowledged each other's status, although we never said it out loud. There were 6 of us. We called ourselves the group. And we were able to get together several times. 3 of them were on a ship that I was on, and 3 of them were on in the military, in the fight in Vietnam, on the ground, in the jungles, doing all of that stuff. I had met these 2 groups when I went job-wise between the ship and actual combat duty. But we managed to get together several times. And all I can tell you is we had so much fun. We had so much fun. We were sisters. We didn't have sex with each other, but don't worry, that was taken care of in other places and other people. But we were sisters, and the group sustained me, and we sustained each other during those really difficult times in war.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine what that must be like. But obviously, thank you on behalf of, I'm sure, lots of other people for making so much progress. And obviously, you were the ones that fought for the rights that we now have in this day and age. So obviously, that is great. And I'm glad that you managed to find sort of a group. I guess humans have a good way of overcoming adversity if you really need to, I guess. And I think you obviously are a prime example of that.
Yeah, well, we all were, all six of us, or seven of us in the group. I've got allergies, so I'm coughing, sorry.
And so obviously, we'll talk about the show in a minute, but on the show, one of the things you mentioned was your HIV positive status.
I mean, I do have a medical condition, you know.
What's that?
I will be honest with you. I have AIDS.
I was just wondering, you know, how has that kind of affected you? And
I was living in San Francisco in the 80s, and it took off, in 82? And immediately the gay community, I don't know if you've ever been to San Francisco, but since the 60s, it's been the center of gay life for the United States, even above New York or LA. And we organized immediately into action because the government was doing nothing. There was no research. There was nothing being done with regard. The president at the time didn't even say the word AIDS until 1987, 88. So I was part of that group, that vanguard. We didn't know if we were HIV or not until 1986 when the test came along. So from 82 until 86, we all just assumed that we were all going to die because as was happening, many were dying. I joined two groups. I was part of the Names Project, which was established by a man called Cleve Jones, and people came in and created these large panels. We called them quilts, and we would join them together, and we made a huge quilt that we took to around the country, but specifically to Washington, D.C. to get the attention of the American people. When we first took it, I don't know if you know D.C., but the quilt went from the Lincoln Memorial to the Washington Memorial, the big 12. The last time I went with it, which is 1982 or 1992 or 93, it went from the Lincoln Memorial all the way to the Capitol building. It was a very moving project, and it gave all of us a way of mourning our losses because so many that had died were abandoned by their families, and we had to pick up their memorializing, and that's what we did with the quilt, with the AIDS quilt. Look it up. It's an amazing project. But I also joined another group because I was really angry, and that was ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition. Let's see, AIDS Coalition, ACT UP. I'm old. Anyway, it was a militant group of men and women that got together, and we did public demonstrations. We had our uniform as Doc Martens, Levi's with a cuff, leather jacket, and own hats, and we all dressed the same. And some of the actions were pretty dramatic. At one point, we blocked the Golden Gate Bridge. We all laid down in the middle of the road on the Golden Gate Bridge. We did that in multiple cities. New York City, we blocked traffic on Broadway. Washington, D.C., we would chain ourselves to the doors of the Federal Drug Administration. We did really radical things, all the way to taking the ashes of those that had died. And we went to Washington, D.C., and we literally threw them on the lawn of the White House. That's how serious it was. One last point, or one last story. In San Francisco, I was part of the University of California college system. It's a medical school in the city. And we got the second International AIDS Conference. I get the years wrong. It would have been 1990. And so the world came to have a discussion about AIDS research. We had gotten the world's attention. This was a success. But ACT UP, we decided we were going to still keep them, really keep their fire to the embers there, or their feet to the fire. And we did demonstration after demonstration. And I was assigned to be the communications director for the whole conference. I was legitimate, remember? Legitimate this side, you'd see. And then my ACT UP. And I became a spy for ACT UP to direct some of the demonstrations. There were several spies. There was one woman I learned later who was the assistant to the chief of police, and she and I actually had offices together. I had no idea. Again, that was, I'm going to write a book about it. So that's my story as far as HIV. Again, it's like I take credit for the gay rights movement. I also take credit for the advancement of medicine that has us today, with me taking a single pill. And the only thing that I have to worry about health-wise is that I'm so old, I'm going to die soon.
Well, that's the blunt humor I think we all love you for. Oh, well, I think that's an incredible story. I think I didn't know any of this, because I mean, you didn't really touch on it that much on Drag, or they didn't show it at least. So yeah. That's insane. Like, thank you so much for doing all of that. Like, you really paved the way, and people you worked with and stuff, like that sounds like something out of a spy novel or something like that. That's insane.
I'm going to write that book.
You should. That would make an amazing book. I would read that book. It's crazy, and it's true. That is all true. Like, that's the thing.
I exaggerate, but I'm not exaggerating. It is what it is, and I have not made up any of these stories. I've just lived them.
Well, I mean, thank you so much for doing all of that, and I guess, being in the military and everything, you kind of said was slightly a sad beginning, but I'm assuming it probably gave you some kind of order to your life and sort of a purpose, from what I'm hearing. So obviously that's great.
You're very perceptive. You're right. Despite the horror that the military inflicted on me as far as kicking me out for being gay, it also gave me knowledge that I, as a poor kid, would have never gotten.
Yeah, I can see why that would help in a lot of ways. And I guess the biggest way for us as the audience was that it brought you to Drag Race. So how did you kind of get involved with Drag Race and the season 5 makeover challenge?
That's another story. I moved back to Los Angeles around 2008, 2010, about 2010. I moved back to Los Angeles, and I became involved with the veterans community because, one, I needed medical help with my PTSD, and I had to get involved in the community to get benefits because of my discharge. I was denied some stuff, so I needed that. And there was a group, AVER, American Veterans for Equal Rights, that I joined, and they were trying to get the Don't Ask, Don't Tell rescinded and make it okay for gays and lesbians to be in the military. So I joined these two groups, and as you can see, I'm a media whore. I'm here talking to you. I've been on television. I'm a background actor. You can't believe what I've done as far as that's concerned. Hell, I was on a game show you probably never heard of. It's called The Wheel of Fortune. But anyway, so I was kind of known in the Hollywood community. people knew my face. And I got a call from one of the producers of Wow, which is at that point, which was the studio that was making Drag Race. And he goes, can you help us out? We're trying to get, 5 Afghan and Iraqi vets to be on the makeover show. And we know that as far as the media is concerned, that you're a spokesman and have contacts, and maybe you could get us 5 men and men to come on the show. And I said, sure. So I did do that. I got 4 guys. They wanted the current veterans, the current war, the Afghan-Iraqi war. They wanted them, but I wanted me to be on the show. So I called them back and I said, look, I can only find 4. Would you consider bringing me on board as the 5th veteran? I know that my war is all gone and I'm kind of a lot old. Would you be willing to do that? They were suspicious because I think I'm unusual for an old person. People tell me that. I'm not sure if they're just making nice, but I'm able to talk and project in a way that isn't adult. I mean, if you talk to my stepbrother, I mean, it's ridiculous. In fact, all old people are that way, my age. So they were suspicious and they asked me to come in for an interview. In other words, they wanted me to audition for the damn show. So I went in there and I got the part. I got in. They said, yeah, Dave, we're going to take you on board. And so that's how I got the other 4 guys. And that's how I got myself on the show.
Wow, I did not expect that as the answer. So, wow. But yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, I don't think you're the usual old person, if I can call that. I mean,
No, I'm not.
but I think actually it was really cool that it wasn't just young veterans. Like it was also kind of a mix because you were there and they kind of, that was part of the storyline as well, that you were kind of the older one. But I think actually that worked out really well because it gave such a great dynamic that it wasn't just like 5 young guys, like there was some diversity in there. So you knew all the other 4 from the military before then, or not?
No. Let's see. The pretty one that could really walk well in high heels. He was a kept Marine up in San Francisco that I had heard about through some friends who's still up there. So I got a hold of him through that. The tall, pretty one, another one. He was. How did I get a hold of him? I think I got a hold of him through a drag show in Las Vegas. He's the throuple to Derek Barry, and then the other 2 I got through AVER in LA, in the LA area, the American Veterans for Equal Rights. That would be Izzy and the big tall Latino, I can't remember his name. They were part of the AVER. Actually, only Izzy was. The other one was in active duty. He was stationed up north, and I got his name through somebody.
Wow. So you were the one that kind of brought them all together then. It's thanks to you.
Yeah.
And then
I found them all.
So you were like the director and then you also cast yourself in the role.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you did because I think, frankly, you kind of stole the show, if I'm honest. Like out of all of them, I think you were definitely like the funny, sort of cute, lovable one of it. And so what did it feel like walking into the workroom? Like, did you have any, I assume, did they tell you it was going to be a makeover challenge?
Oh, yeah. No, we definitely, I was enjoying it to be a drag queen. To this day, I still say it didn't work. Did you see me? But to walk onto that show, I'd watched it, of course. I loved it. It was magic. I'm getting tears. To walk into that room the first time was, and I've been on this planet a long time, was the most amazing thing to happen to me at that point. It was remarkable. It's a place of wonder that very rare, very few people get to experience. I mean, when you stop and think about it, I mean, yeah, now it's all over the world. But at that point, and well, no, even today, despite the fact that it's all over the world, to get into that room, honey, it's amazing. I'm getting all gushy, but you cannot believe how amazing it is to be in that room. Obviously, we had been out doing all kinds of running around with different producers and directors and talking. People talk about scripted. The show, I'll tell you what is scripted. The part where we go for Untucked in the room, so like the Queens and us get together or the veterans are together, there is somebody sitting over there. Now, we're all talking anyway. They throw out, you just had your challenge with the twirling. What was that like? So we're all talking, and every once in a while, and not very often, every once in a while, the script lady will say, "Can somebody please ask a question of whoever, and see, and let's see if you can we get some responses to that." So there was a little bit of scripting being done in the Untucked areas, but when you're in the room, in the magic room, there's 3 cameras constantly rolling. There's the men with those straps that, allow them to carry at the steady cam stuff. There's also a rolling one like you see in movies, where, there's that one. So there's always 3, 4 cameras, and we're always mic'd. We have wireless microphones strapped onto us. We're always mic'd. So everything is being recorded, and obviously the editors will tie together the story that they want. Yeah, some of it's manipulated to make it look like we were fighting or look like there was some drama that maybe if I'm in the room, I didn't see it that way. But none of it was scripted, and the only area where any kind of scripting can be thought of is a little bit in that editing. But even in that, I know during my show, they barely did any of that. My prediction about Monsoon, everybody looked mad at me. They weren't. They were going, when I said, "Trust me, Monsoon's going to win this," they all like that. That wasn't real. That they were actually just looking at me going, "Old man, are you serious? She can't win. She's a clown." I knew they were all thinking that.
That's so interesting. I think I think this kind of like, lifting the curtain and hearing a bit more about the behind the scenes, that's like so interesting, because obviously we don't get to know any of that as people watching, but that's so interesting to hear that. I think we probably all can guess that there is some, not so much scripting, but kind of sort of massaging of them sort of throwing questions and stuff. Like, that's obvious. It's a TV show at the end of the day. But
reality.
But I think you could tell that it has to be genuine, otherwise it wouldn't be good if it was completely scripted.
Yeah. If they had edited it any other way, really hard, or did the scripting, you wouldn't be watching the show. So when I look back at my show, about the only part that they've manipulated is just my prediction, and that's about it. Otherwise, what you saw is what you saw.
Yeah, definitely. You could tell. That's why I think people loved you, because you just came across as being so authentic and kind of unfiltered and just saying whatever, which obviously I think we all love. So how did it feel sort of being, I remember you walked in and you were rocking those bell-bottom pants.
Somebody called him, "And who's the old guy in the jazz pants?"
Well, they were definitely a statement, and we all remembered for that. What did it feel like? What did it feel like being sort of the oldest compared to the other guys?
It was hard. In the beginning of the AIDS drug trials, I took an experimental one that caused my body to get misshapen. I have no muscle or fat in my arms or legs. And so I knew that it was going to be tough for me physically, because there's a lot of jumping around to do. There are the heels. Oh my God, the heels. I couldn't do that. I couldn't believe it. And here's the ordained part of all of it, the higher power about all of it. Jinkx had a pair of little kitten heels that she used for when she did drag as an old woman. And they fit me perfectly. So there was that kind of odd things that would happen that would make it easy for me to do what I did on the show. And also the connection between Jinkx and I. She was the youngest and I was the oldest on the show. And yeah, you don't know this, but she had a crystal that she kept as an energy field, but it was just raw crystal, one of those beautiful purple ones, and it was on her station that we worked at. And I had a crystal that I'd bought in Paris a few years before that. When I was there, I was writing a book, and it was a butterfly, a purple butterfly crystal. And so near the ending of our time together, 3 days, I gave it to her as a gift because I knew she was going to win. And I said, I picked up her crystal. I says, this is you right now, raw, but you're going to become this, a fully formed, etched crystal butterfly. And I gave that to her, put it on thing. She's never talked about it. I never have until now. But those are the kind of weird things that were happening between us that made us really connected. Yeah. The Judy Garland thing cemented us. Because as you saw, she looked like Liza and I looked like Judy at the end.
Well, obviously it was a match made in heaven then. I mean, that's such a lovely story about the crystal and everything. Like that's incredible. And I think you clearly both, it must have been written in the stars or something that I think you both come across as being these kind of lovable people that have a kind of spiritualness about you. And then for you to be paired together, that's like obviously amazing.
I believe that. I mean, I can't remember all of the other ones, but there were several moments like that, just touch moments where, oh, wow.
Gosh, wow. That's so interesting. Did you know any of the drag queens from before? Like, did you recognize any of them or anything like that?
No, I like drag, but I don't go to drag shows, At that point, I wasn't going out a lot. So, no, I didn't know any of them. That would have been nice. I knew RuPaul. I was the first time I saw RuPaul was in 1993. I was in Italy, in Rome, and my boyfriend at the time and I went out to a gay bar, and we're sitting there, and the place is empty, and it's like 5 o'clock in the evening. It should have been people there. It was empty, and the bartender looked at me and says, oh, you don't know what's happening. There's this amazing drag queen that's coming here to be on live TV, and everybody's at home watching it as if it's a football game, soccer game. And he turned on the TV, and there's RuPaul. She's doing some live show, singing and talking. And all of Italy was stopped in their tracks watching this tall, gorgeous, black drag queen.
Oh my God, wow. And that's your introduction to to know who RuPaul was.
And in fact, that had to be a part of the world knowing, because prior to that, she was just, a street person in New York City. So it was really the beginning. And I actually got to see her, at least on TV, in Italy, of all places, at the beginning of RuPaul.
Oh, wow. So how did it feel to then meet RuPaul in person?
I've actually run into her a couple of times, although we've never met. RuPaul. You want him to be really warm and friendly and to be that special person. Dude, he's a rich, smart man, and his business sense doesn't allow him to go there. So he's cold, not mean, but cold. He's got, obviously you're hearing I'm changing the gender difference, because he is a genius, and he has to keep his together to hold this mountain that he's built in his hands. So he's not this warm, fuzzy friend. He's good to meet you, Dave. Today we're going to be doing this, and I hope that you are able to help us in achieving the goal for today, and I'll see you later. So I hope that doesn't bust anybody's bubble, but I'm sorry. I know genius when I see it, and I know genius has to be a little bit different than the rest of us. Not better, but different.
Yeah, I think that's a really insightful interpretation, because I think other people have kind of said that. I think he has to kind of maintain a distance, and he does sort of, I guess he is making a TV show and everything. And obviously some people interpret that badly and some people just kind of accept it. So it's interesting to hear from your perspective what it was like actually meeting him in person. And so obviously, so you come on, you're on the show, you get paired with Jinkx. What did you feel about Jinkx when you met her? Like, what were your first impressions of her?
I thought she was a clown. I didn't think she was the kind of pageant queen that RuPaul had been showing for 4 years before this. I wasn't sure. It was only until we started working together that I realized that there was something going on special there. So, yeah, no, right off the bat, I thought, oh, God, well, you know what? It's a TV show, and this is what I got. I guess I'll just go with it. She looked a mess. I don't know if you remember, but she was a mess. By the way, the rule was on set that if you're in drag, so I just broke the rule like that. If you're in drag, we are she, her, girl. And when we're out of drag, we are him, he, Dave. So we had to, except the queens, they kept their names, but we had to differentiate, which was powerful, because it wasn't they told us, they told everybody around us. Assistant, production assistant, make sure you call them she when they're dressed as women, and you make sure that you refer to him as him when he's out of drag. Do you understand? They did that in front of us to let all of the support people, which, by the way, there's a lot of them, let them know how to address us. Maybe it's different, when it's just the queens, whether they're in or out of drag. But for us makeover people, there were strict rules on how the production people would refer to us, depending on where we were in the dressing.
Yeah, I can see. I think, yeah, definitely that seems to be the convention of it's she, her in drag, and then he, him, or they, depending on obviously what pronouns they prefer out of drag. But it's really interesting to hear that they actually made a point of that on set. That's really good, that they have this distinction between the character that's drag and the real person.
Yeah.
So obviously you talked about, you got to know Jinkx and everything. A lot of people wanted to ask whether you have kept in touch with Jinkx since, or anyone else from the show.
Here's the deal. You're not their best friends. A drag queen, a Jinkx, an actor, an actress, unless you grew up with them, you're not their best friend. Jinkx is getting involved with so many other people in the world, Ben de la Creme, their show, all of those things. I am not his best friend. I wish I could be, but I'm not. And we didn't talk. We don't talk. We never did, actually, after the show, except for once. I do have a picture. I should give it to you. I did see him once here in West Hollywood. we're not best friends, and I know that's disappointing to hear, but what you have to understand, this is showbiz, and actors and actresses, they're not your best friend. You're lucky when you get into their orbit. You're lucky when you can have dinner or lunch with them, but you can't just call them and be their best friend. And so, unfortunately, that's the way Jinkx and I are. I hope to see him again someday, but no, we're not pals.
Yeah, I kind of didn't really expect you to be, like you said, it's Hollywood, and you meet someone on a TV show for a couple of days and everything. I guess you would be friendly if you saw each other, and I'm sure you both have respect for each other, but you're not sort of best friends,
Right. Yep.
I think that's fair enough. I think most people probably wouldn't expect you to necessarily be best friends anyway. And so one thing I kind of wanted to touch on was one of the parts you said connected you to Jinkx was the whole Judy Garland, Liza Minnelli vibe that you had. And on the show, one of the things, and this question, by the way, came up a lot in the questions that subscribers submitted. One of the parts where you said to RuPaul, with Jinkx there as well, I think I killed Judy Garland.
I think I might have killed Judy Garland. We were talking one night at dinner, and she asked me about the new sleeping pills that were out. I told her about a new one, and she died of an overdose.
Which is quite a crazy story. So I was just wondering, can you tell us a bit about that?
Okay. You've made a lovely channel with the tea reference, the English TEA, the drinking of the tea. The way I interpret the way we use the tea here in the United States is the truth. So here's the truth. Two things. That was the only time I broke through RuPaul's veneer. When I said that, he choked and he couldn't speak for several beats. I think they shortened it on the show, but he just stood there. And on the fly, I changed the story. It wasn't that we just talked about when I had that dinner with Judy Garland back in 1968. We had gotten drunk the night before together, but then we had dinner the next night. I was going back to my base, and she wanted to see me in uniform, so I got all dressed. I was going to have to anyway. I had to jump a train, and we went to dinner. And she was getting ready to go to England, to move to England. And they had taken away all of her pills. So in the show, I said that I told her about these pills. I gave her some that night. And in today's world, it's horrifying that someone would give obviously a person who has a problem. In those days, and I hope that the fans out there forgive me, in those days, during that period, it was weird that we did those things. We didn't have the education. It was a different time. And I wouldn't do that today, of course not. And it was a different time, and I hope that people would forgive me because, yeah.
Like you said, I think it was a very different time, and I guess you didn't necessarily know that she was addicted to pills and that would be a bad thing to do, or kind of it could be a dangerous thing to do. Like you said, that was in the 60s. That was a very long time ago, and I think from what I've read and everything, I don't think people necessarily at the time in general spoke about those things, and specifically with someone like Judy Garland, who was obviously like a global superstar. People probably didn't even know that she actually had a problem necessarily.
There was always rumors, but yeah, you're right.
So how did you actually meet Judy in the first place then?
Oh God. You That's these stories, and they're a little bit long. I was up in Boston. I was there to meet one of the gang from the group, one of the guys that I was in Vietnam with. And he was partnered at the time, and I wanted to go out, and they didn't want to go out. So I went by myself, went into Boston, and I went to a place called Jinkx. It was kind of a leather rough bar. In those days, those were really rough. I mean, it wasn't just kidding, and it wasn't just fetish. It was a rough place. And I'm going, I'm more of a sweater and skirt guy, I wear Baswegians, So I asked the bartender where to go, and he goes, there's a secret place right up the street. It's called The Other Side. What you need to do is you need to go in there, and there'll be a long bar, normal. Go in there, sit down, have a drink, and then ask the bartender if it's okay if you use the back room, if you go into the back room. And he'll either say yes or no, because the police would raid gay bars all the time, arrest people, really hustle us. And so this was a speakeasy, if you will, for gay people. And in the back, there was this rod that had this beautiful, dark green velvet curtain on a circular rod built into the wall. He says, go in there and stand there for a moment, and then you'll see. So I had my one drink, and the bartender gave me the instructions, and I went back there, parted the curtain, went in, and I was sitting in I don't know if you know what a phone booth is, but I was sitting in a dark room with a red light like a phone booth, but there was another door. And all of a sudden, the door opened, and it opened into The Other Side, which was a large dance hall like area with chairs and tables scattered about, a stage where drag shows would be put on, and a long old wooden bar at the far end of this dance hall, of this cabaret, if you will. Yeah, it was a cabaret. Lots of noise, lots of people, mixed men, women. It was really cool. I didn't get to see any of the shows, but I bet they were really good. But sitting alone at the end of the bar was Judy Garland. Nobody bothered her because, nobody, that's the way gay people were in those days. We didn't glom onto our idols or TV actors. We were very cool about it. So she was alone. I went and sat down. I said to the bartender, I'd like a, blah, 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 scotch and soda. And I'll pay for the next one for the lady. And that was it. We spoke all night long. I don't know what she was doing there. I'd love to talk to one of her daughters because she was living in Hollywood. She had no connection to Boston that I know of. And I know she was getting ready. Well, she told me that she was getting ready to go to London to live there and have her big comeback. And so we talked all night long, a little bit about her, but she was really curious about me. She knew I was in the military. She leaned over. She looked at me. So you're in the Navy. And I go, how do you know? And she goes, your haircut. If you were a Marine, I know exactly that you were a Marine, and you're certainly not in the Army. So you're in the Navy. And I, one of the things she said to me, she says, the only time I can really say that I enjoyed and felt what I did entertainment-wise was during World War II, when I would do shows for servicemen. It was the only time that I felt real and authentic and purposeful. And so that's why she glommed onto me. She knew that I was a military guy, and she just wanted to get back to that, I think, my interpretation. She wanted to get back to that period again where she was hanging out with real people. In fact, she said something like that. The only real people on this planet right now are military people, talking about World War II. But she knew about Vietnam too. So we got drunk, and then she goes, you know what? Let's have dinner tomorrow. And I go, no, I'm leaving town. So let's have dinner. And she says, there's a little place around the corner called the 12 Carver. The street was Carver. The address was 12. And she goes, let's have dinner there and bring come in your uniform. I want to hang out with a sailor tomorrow night. So that's how that happened. We weren't best of friends. We were just two people that met and we connected for a little time.
That's I mean, that is insane. That sounds like something from a fictional book.
It's like a movie.
Yeah, what a life you've lived. I mean,
my whole life has been like that, by the way.
I'm sure that, well, you're obviously one of those people that's like blessed and has this amazing life. I mean, you know, I didn't really know a huge amount about Judy Garland. It was actually, I think, kind of through Drag Race that I knew who she was, you know, from the name and everything. But it was from Drag Race that, because RuPaul really loved her, that I listened to her music, and she was incredible, still is, you know, listening to her music. And I can only imagine what it must have been like to meet her. She just had that energy and so talented, probably the best singer that, you know, of a generation, you know? So the fact that you got to meet her is incredible. I'm very jealous. So getting back to sort of Drag Race a little bit, because obviously we were sort of talking about that was quite a big thing in the show, was the I Kill Judy Garland thing. So when you actually, you know, did the rest of you had to get into drag, do the little performance, the dance routine with the flags and all the rest of it, how did it actually feel being in drag? Like, what was your perception of it?
What you guys don't know is that because of this saggy skin, the makeup, I don't know if you know this, but makeup moves, and it would literally, eyes and all of, you know, everything, it would slide off of my face after about an hour or two in hot lights. And so we're always running back to the room for Jinkx to paint me back up. I mean, I was like, people say I was beat to death with like, to keep my face from sliding off. So it was hilarious. And we made sure that I never had to talk because, honey, I'm an old man. And well, I won't get into it, but stuff gets bigger in the weirdest way. And hey, no, honey, we don't want to talk about that. So there was never going to be any of that tape. Trust me. So we made sure that my outfits never had to do the talk.
Yeah, I think I can only imagine what that must be like. And like you said, doing the paint and the tucking and everything, and standing in heels, especially, you know, you talked about your medical condition. That must have just been, I mean, even if you don't have a medical condition, I can't even imagine standing in heels for that long.
It is hard. I did try some of the big ones. You should have seen it. It was, I think they showed it, in fact. But doing all of that stuff, hey, like Judy Garland, let's do a show. And so I made sure that I came to perform, to do the gig, and respect the audience, because you don't go on that TV show if you're just going to make light of what's going on. You better be serious about what you're in your head, about what you're doing, about the persona you're building. Drag queens are legitimate entertainers, legitimate actors. They are of a caliber of Judy Garland. I mean, literally every single one of those are all legitimate. And I went there to do the gig, and I think I did the gig.
You most certainly did. I think, to be honest, although, you know, I thought the winners and everything were definitely, they earned it and everything, but I personally was very confident when I watched it. I thought that you and Jinkx were going to win, to be honest, because I thought your show was good. You had great choreography and everything, like no shade to Roxy, who won, but I thought you two were just like, the whole Liza and Judy thing was just like so genius, and it worked. Your outfit was good. Like you said, it was flattering, and you didn't have to, she had a difficult challenge dressing someone much older than the other people, and you still managed to do everything. You always had a smile on your face. Like, that's why I think people loved you so much, because you just came across as being like the lovable, dad or, granddad or whatever,
Yeah. Jinkx, I mean, not Jinkx, Izzy and what was his queen's name? What's her name?
Roxy?
Roxy had just, we just learned that she had been abandoned on a bus stop.
My mom never wanted me, and my mother left my sister and myself at a bus stop when I was 3, and I remember it like it was yesterday.
So all of that stuff had just come out. And so I think, is there favoritism in some of the judging? Obviously there has to be. And did Izzy perform and deliver? Definitely. So in a way, they kind of gave it to them. One, because they did deserve it, but two, Roxy had just done a real number on everybody. So that was important, and I'm glad that they won, actually.
Yeah, she definitely was like, I can see why it works with the storyline, but she also did deserve it. She was like, the outfit was incredible, the makeup was incredible. They both performed it so well. But I thought if it wasn't Roxy, it would have definitely been you and Jinkx.
Definitely.
Did you think that way as well? Like, were you quite confident that you were going to win?
I knew that I was going to do better than the tall one and the pretty one. And what's his name his makeup was definitely busted. So yeah, I was pretty sure we were going to be in the top 2.
And did Jinkx think that as well?
I didn't ask her. We didn't talk about that. Yeah, no, I didn't ask her. We had a great time, by the way, being together, and we did talk. We did talk a lot. You only saw half of it. Yeah, no, it was cool.
Yeah, that was one of the questions that came up. Was someone said, how long do you actually talk to the queens? Like, obviously compared to what is shown on TV is quite small, but how much do you actually interact with the queens?
It's 3 days of work. One day was short, but otherwise, we were on the set probably 9 to 10 hours for the 2 main days of filming. And during that 9 and 10 hours, we were with the queens at least half the time. The other half obviously would be when we'd be in the untucked room just talking amongst ourselves, or we would do publicity photos, or there was the eating. We were never allowed to eat with the queens because they didn't want to film us, stuffing our faces, and they didn't want any dialogue or interaction to escape them. So they made us separated so that we would be fresh when we were talking on the set, on the stage, all of that interaction with RuPaul. So we would eat separate from them. But I would say, the dress that we made, that Jinkx and I helped for about half of it. And then she spent the night finishing it. It wasn't sewn, it was glued. It was hot glued. I wish I had kept it. But anyway, but it was a total wreck by the end of the runway stuff, because it was all hot glued together. In fact, I was all glued together. We made a turban and so yeah, about 50% of the time we're together. The other times we're either eating or, like I said, doing our own show in one of the other rooms, in one of the other sets.
Okay, so that's quite a lot then, I guess. So you really do get to kind of know the queens quite a lot, not just what's shown on camera, but you do build up a bond. And I think that's really nice. And I can see why they separate you to make sure that nothing gets lost or any dialogue is then off camera. So I can kind of see why they do that. But it's nice to hear that you did have a good amount of interaction with the queens.
Definitely. She talked a lot about how her youth was difficult, and I don't know if she's ever told that story, but she told me how it was very difficult for her mother and stuff. I'm not going to give any information about that. That's for Jinkx to do. But she also told me how she was educated. Jinkx actually went to real theatrical school. I don't know where, but it was up there in Seattle or Portland, wherever she's from. Seattle. She's legit as far as her ability to do stage work and the concepts of putting on a show. She has studied it. It's just not some bar night thing that she did as a young person.
Yeah, you could tell she was definitely like a trained actress. She knew what she always held herself really well. She was always really funny or like capture whatever role she needed. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me that she went to like acting school, theatrical school, because you could tell.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to ask, we were talking about interactions with the queens and everything, and so not just you and Jinkx, but also you and I guess the other people. One thing I read online, I saw a picture. So Coco Montrese, who was also on that episode, who sadly went home that episode, she posted on Instagram once that she had this red robe and said that you had given it to her as a gift.
I gave gifts to everybody. Well, I can't remember which queen. Anyway, I gave gifts to everybody. One of the queens, I had these postcards that I got when I was in the Navy, and I was in San Francisco in 1968. I went up there, and I went to the there was a drag bar up there called Finocchio's, and so I had postcards from those olden days of these aged queens. I mean, these old queens from that day, and I gave one of those or a couple of those to one of the queens. So everybody got a gift from me. Pretty much everybody. Maybe I missed one or two. And to Coco, I had this Chinese. It was actually a dress, but it was very small. I'm a big guy, as you can tell. But I always loved it, and I had it for years. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to give it to her. Maybe it'll be in a show. As it wasn't. She would wear it backstage up in Vegas, where she had her show, as her makeup robe. So she would use it when she's putting on makeup so that it could get dirty, no problem. But it was a beautiful gold brocade, Chinese, velvet red dress. And yeah, I gave her that.
Oh,
is there a picture? Is there a picture of her wearing it?
Yes, there is. I'll put it on screen. So that's how I found it. I was researching for this interview, and I came across that picture, and I think she was in the makeup room doing it, so that makes sense that she wears it while she's doing her makeup. But wow, that's so sweet of you to give gifts to everyone. That's such like a nice thing to do. You know, I guess that's why people love you. So as you know, the name of my channel is Drag Tea Served. So I was wondering if you could serve us some drag tea, and I mean tea, whether it's truth or tea drinking, and tell us something, you know, behind the scenes that happened. In your comment that you left me, how we arranged this interview, you mentioned something about you and the boys taking some vodka and getting drunk one night. Is there anything like that?
Yeah, I think in season 3, in those, first to set it up, in those days, the sponsor was one of the big vodka names. I'm not going to say it here because, you know, you've got a channel. So it was a big vodka thing. And so they had a lot of vodka there, flavored vodka, regular, big bottles, small bottles, etc. And like season 3, I think one of the queens got really drunk and went on stage, and the production did not like it. Rue did not like it. So there was a one drink policy from then on. So we were told that. And we did. I remember in the Untucked, there was a time when we were with the queens, and I believe we were drinking. Yeah, we were drinking. We had a cocktail all, And then they left, and it was just the veterans. And we had our one cocktail that we'd been nursing. For some reason, and we were always watched. The whole time, the 3 days of filming or on set, we were always watched by somebody, some production assistant, some producer, or minimum, there was always a cameraman there, a cameraman or woman. There was always somebody with us. For some reason, they disappeared. We were alone. All those veterans are sitting there, and there was nobody around. And one thing you don't do to a military man or even an ex-military man, you don't leave them alone with free booze. And so we put together an operation. Literally, we weren't in the area where the bar was. So literally we set it up. I was lookout. I went and got mixers. And there was another guy that was lookout. And there was two guys that went into the liquor room to get a bottle. And we all snuck around in the back. I don't know if you know the setup. It's a huge hangar, like an airport hangar. Airplane hangar, and there are all these little doll houses, if you will, built up. The untucked room, the magic room, where everybody hangs out, and there's like 4 or 5 different rooms, for different things. And so we're sneaking around behind, and there's these narrow hallways all that connect with wires and all this shit back there. So we're stealthily, and we got the bottle of booze, and we got so drunk. Luckily, we were done for the day. I think we had to do some publicity shots, but we were, that you guys have not seen, but we were drunk by that time. It was really, I wish there had been Uber. Don't tell anybody, but I drove home. I'm going, oh, no, get it together. But since I lived in LA, I didn't get a hotel room like the other guys. So yeah, we literally put on a military operation, and we got the goods.
Oh my God. That's literally the case of like when the cats are away, the mice will play, or whatever,
That's where that comes from.
Yes. That's so funny. So was there anything else that kind of happened behind, say, something that maybe happened that you wish they'd shown or something like that?
Or something that nobody talks about. The actual final scene where the winner is announced is not done there in the studio, or at least during our time, it wasn't done there. I think it was in the earlier episodes. But instead of a little theater over in North Hollywood, here in the Los Angeles area, a nice little theater. And so we all went there. It was obviously months after we did the taping, and it's disappointing because you really don't find out who the winner is. And what we do in there, we're all there having a great time hanging out with the queens. Oh, it's so good to see you and stuff. Again, they tape as if each one of them won, and then obviously they cut, when they finally broadcast, they cut to the one that did win. So we never knew who would won. Well, here's the tea. Let's see, there's Detox. Anyway, from another season, there's these 3 queens, and they all that have that hard nature. And I won't tell you which one, but as it was, one of them was in jail, and the production had to get together the money to get her out of freaking jail so that she could be on the show to be able to do. Now, she wasn't part of our season, but she was coming back for some stuff. I don't remember what. So we're all together at this taping of the big reveal that wasn't, and she's running in, still in jail drag, trying to get it together to be on camera. It was so funny.
Oh my God.
That was so funny.
Well, so a queen from a previous season who was going to be like in the audience of the finale, but she was
yeah. So, I don't know if you know, but queens can be hard and live a very hard life.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're going to talk about, but we'll leave that to people's imagination and research to find out. Oh my God, that's so cool though that you crazy and cool that you had that experience. You know, it doesn't quite sound real, but do you know what I mean? It sounds like something from a movie.
I know. Everything that I've experienced all sounds like a stupid movie, but it's the truth. I did go to a bar here in West Hollywood that was doing the show that was broadcasting the finale. And so I was brought up on stage, and when they were finally getting ready to announce it, everybody was looking at me. You know, I love the attention. And so, yeah, that was fun. In fact, even today, I still get recognized every once in a while. I was in a bar just 2 weeks ago here in West Hollywood, and a guy from England came up to me, literally, and he goes, "Can I talk to you?" And I go, "Sure." And he goes, "Oh, you loved you in RuPaul's Drag Race. Can I get a selfie?" And blah, 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 in that English accent, you know, and I'm going, "Yeah, sure." So it still happens. Obviously, it's been almost 10 years now. Right after the show, I was getting recognized all the time. I felt like a star. I drove to Palm Springs one day, stopped at a burger joint on the way, and there was a kid in the back cooking, and he stood there looking at me with his mouth open, like, and I go, "Yeah, it's me." And he comes up and not so much today, but it's fun. It's fun to still get recognized. Yeah.
Well,
you know
hopefully
what?
after the interview, maybe you'll get recognized a bit more.
Yeah, we'll see. And you know, to tell you the truth, you know, we got big money to be on the show.
Oh, you got paid?
Honey, and I can't tell you, but we got big money to be on the show.
Wow. I thought maybe it would be like a volunteer thing, or they would pay like something. I didn't realize it was like, you know.
No, there's rules in Hollywood about making sure that people don't get taken disadvantage. So they were following those rules very carefully.
Well, I guess you were worth the money, because it was a great show, and I can see why people remembered you, because you were like the lovable guy and you were quite different to the others, and I can see why that really. And then I think also, I guess the fact that you were paired with the eventual winner of the season, I guess that also probably helped slightly as well.
It sticks for sure.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I'd love to now get on to some subscriber questions, if I may.
Sure, hit me.
I had a lot of questions for you. I had to sort of condense them down because I had so many. Some were sort of duplicated more than once. So I've kind of condensed them down into as many as I thought we could fit into the time. And so one question was, how did your family and friends react to you in drag? Did they approve or disapprove? And how did it feel seeing yourself as a drag queen for the first time?
I couldn't talk about it. Only until you sign a disclaimer and they give you a lot of money and they go, "If you don't keep your mouth shut, we'll take it back." But I did, obviously, I live with my stepbrother and his wife. They live upstairs. I live in the basement. And the girls next door, 3 girls that live there, 12 to 17 at the time, they really loved Drag Race. So I told them. They were screeching all the time. They were going, you know, when I was filming, they knew that I was at the set, and they'd come over, and you know, and I couldn't talk to them. They loved it. But when I did finally come on, obviously all my gay friends were just amazed. I don't have that much family. I've got a sister who we don't speak. And let's see, and my brother had just died. I've got an aunt up in north, so I don't have, I'm a lonely old man. It's basically what I'm saying. So sadly, I didn't get to, I didn't have to worry about getting support or no support. but nobody that knows me was surprised at all that I would be willing to go on national TV and do that.
Like you said, when you got into that character, I was like, yeah, he's thought about this. This is clearly, something he enjoyed.
It was.
Another question. So to sort of set this question up, I just wanted to sort of confirm something first. So on season 6, which was the season after you were on, the Queens had to do a comedy stand-up challenge. And I didn't realize this before, but there was a gentleman in the audience wearing a stripy top. And I didn't realize until someone mentioned this, but then I realized that is you, I believe, who fell asleep during Bianca's routine.
Actually, during the whole show, I was sleeping. I did. I got into persona. Now, here's the deal. We are put into, when you get on RuPaul, they are putting you into a pressure cooker. They make it so that they goad you, they goad you. Do a show, do something. Don't just be you. And people, the cream people are very angry at me. But I'm sorry. It's show business, honey. And Ben La Cream did not do anything that was funny. Nothing. And I'm sorry, I had to yell out.
With something that made the whole thing worthwhile.
So tell us a joke.
Good night, everybody. Wow.
You're an amazing queen. In my head, I'm going, you're an amazing queen. What the hell are you doing dying up there on the stage? So impulse and the pressure cooker made me just yell it out. Now everybody went, and Ru just stood there looking at me smiling, because that moment had to happen that way. The sleeping was a joke. I love the way what's her name roasted me.
I like the gentleman in the back who's sleeping. Makes me feel right at home. Can you wake that bitch up? Yeah, the one right there with the horizontal stripes. Not a good look in your 3rd trimester, sir. All right?
She got me. Hey, you wake up. What's her name? I'm so old.
Bianca Del Rio.
Huh?
Bianca
Yeah, right.
Del Rio.
She fried me. I loved it. So yes, it was rude, and I know her fans are hurt by it, but they have to understand that this is what it's about. It's a show, and man, you got to deliver. And if you don't, you also need to be called out. I mean, what do you think sashay away means? So I was just being me.
Yeah, like you said, I guess it is a TV show and it makes for good TV and everything. Did you sort of regret, or do you sort of feel bad about shouting out, or do you kind of like, it was...
No, I don't. I'm sorry. No, I don't. I got invited to the show, by the way, I think because they wanted to see what I would do. I mean, they literally brought me there exactly to do something like that. So trust me, they knew what they were doing by bringing me back like that.
And so when you fell asleep, and when you were asleep, you said you were asleep. Was it for the whole show? Or did you fall asleep? Was that real, or were you told to sort of pretend to be asleep?
Nobody told us anything. The thing was that we were all old people. I don't know if you noticed, but the crowd was made up of people above 50. So we were all old people. So I came in as a persona. I brought a cane. I brought sunglasses, and I not pretended. But I definitely put on an act, a persona, to match what I think the show wanted at that point. And so, yeah, I did that all on my own. I wasn't asleep. Honey, I wanted to get her attention. And I knew I would, because she's that kind of queen. She was come after me, and she did.
It made for great TV, to be honest. So I think that's like, everything happens for a reason. And I guess if that hadn't happened, maybe she, like, because she obviously showed how quick she was, that she just came up with that, roasted you, and obviously that made for great TV, to be honest. So I think even if it was not necessarily real, it's a TV show.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. I never realized that it was you until one of the comments said that. So that was some juicy tea. How did your life change after Drag Race, was then one of the questions. I know you kind of touched on fame in terms of being recognized, but did it help you in any other way?
I had been suffering from PTSD. For some reason, it came back to me with the start of the Iraq War, the U.S. war in Iraq, because it was so pointless. It didn't seem, it was. Maybe there was a reason to go to Afghanistan after 9/11, but Iraq was just Bush being a totally incompetent president. And for some reason, that triggered in me all of the horror that I'd lived through in Vietnam. Anger, things like that. My partner of 13 years dumped me. That's why I moved back to LA. I was alone. When I got back, being involved with the veterans group, I decided that I needed to get help. So I went to the VA and got PTSD treatment, really good treatment. I was lucky. My doctor is a gay guy. It took a year, but I was able to get control of my PTSD. And that's when RuPaul's landed in my life. To that point, I thought my life was over. Lost my partner. Oh, I lost my job. I also got fired. I lost all my friends in San Francisco because I had to come down here. I mean, I thought, okay, I'm now an old person and nobody will ever want to see me or talk to me again. I'm not going to be able to contribute anything. I'm finished. To be on that show changed all of that. All of that. I realized it wasn't quite the end yet. Maybe it is now because I'm 75. But at that point, I realized it wasn't the end. The show changed my life at a point when I thought it was all over. Since then, I've written 2 books. One of them is a short story about my life. It's called Zippo Boys. It's about Vietnam, and all of the things that we've been talking about a little bit is in there. Not RuPaul, but I'm now finishing up a second novel called Butterfly Dream. Get the connections. And that's a story about a young Jewish boy living through the Holocaust, knowing that he's gay, not a pink triangle, but Jewish, but being gay. And it's based on a true story of an old man that I met up in San Francisco, where he told me his story. I hope to have that out by the end of the year. I went on to get onto TV shows, there's a news station here called MSNBC, and I was interviewed by them like 2 months ago about veterans issues. I'm a background actor. I was on the Wheel of Fortune, it's a game show here, won a few $1,000. It changed my life to be on RuPaul's Drag Race. It gives you confidence. It gives you hope. It gives you happiness. It gives you life.
Oh, I'm so glad that you had that experience. And I think definitely, it's not the end of your life. You showed that you have so much life to give. You don't in any way seem 75, I'll be honest. You seem like way younger than that. You have this amazing life. The part that surprised me the most was when you said you've written a book about your life and it's a short story. Really? You seem to have so much to talk like that. The crazy things that have happened to you. I can't imagine that's a short story.
It's only about my time in the military, just that 4 years.
I was going to say, if it was about your life, I imagine you have so many stories you could fill tombs of.
I'll get to that. I've got one more in me.
Well, that's so great. And I'm so glad that you had that experience with Drag Race and it really has shown you, because I mean, I think you are like an amazing guy. You're like, you've got so much personality. I can see why you're great on like game shows and stuff like that. Like you're obviously a great spokesperson for the gay community and obviously veterans and things like that.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for that. That was great. I'm sure people have really got to know you more and answered questions and everything. I'd love to do just just finish off a quick fire question and answer round.
Okay.
This is something I do, and some of the questions are drag related, so we'll see, you know, how you feel about them, and then others are just random questions.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question is lipstick or lip gloss?
Lipstick. Gloss doesn't stain the lips, so there's no color that comes through. So lipstick will actually stain the lips, and especially on the second application, you've got more color coming through. So lipstick.
Yes or no, pineapple on pizza?
Oh, f*** you. No. Are you kidding? I mean, stupid Americans.
Favorite emoji?
I hate emojis. So the only one that I really like is the clown one, because I hate emojis. The smiley. No, all of those just drive me nuts. Say something. Don't just give me a So the only one that makes sense to me is the clown one, and I pretty much use that every time I respond with an emoji.
Great choice. Cocktail or champagne?
Cocktail. Yeah, no, I was a bartender when I got out of the Navy for a little while, so I can make a mean drink. Planter's Punch. You want a zombie? I can do one. Gin and tonic. I've got the right ratio of lime to vodka and tonic. So, yeah, cocktail.
Great. And can you summarize your experience on Drag Race in one word?
Ultimate. It was the ultimate experience, even for me, who's been on the planet, like I've already referenced a few times, so long. The ultimate.
Great. Thank you so much. That was an amazing thing. We got to know you so much more. Thank you for your answers. So what can people expect from you, and where can people find you? What's your next, have you got any projects coming up? You talked about your books.
Yeah, no, obviously I'm doing a shameless plug here. Zippo Boys can be found on Amazon, obviously. Butterfly Dream is the biggie. I'm still doing my advocacy for people who have struggled. So Los Angeles is doing a thing on survivors of trauma, sexual war, whatever. So I'm going to be part of that. That'll be coming out soon. When I write, I travel. So I spent 5 months in Europe writing Butterfly Dream, experiencing that. So look for that to be coming out by the end of the year. And then, who knows? Who knows? Stuff keeps happening. I mean, for God's sakes, you called. This came out of the blue. If people are curious, just a few things about me, www.davelara.com is where you can see a little bit. I haven't refreshed it lately, so forgive me. But there's information about my books. that's basically it. No, just keep watching. I will pop up. I am old, and there is going to be an end to my exuberance, but I'm just not quite finished. So we'll see.
I hope so too. I hope we haven't seen the end of Dave for a very long time, because I'm sure we were all so entertained by you, and you're so lovable and genuine, so many amazing stories. So I'm sure we would all love to hear more about, in your books and everything.
Thank you. We are real people, I think, is what I hope you're seeing from this interview with you, Matt, is what you're seeing on TV are real people.
Well, Dave, thank you very much. So this has been Dave Lara, aka Fortuna Monsoon. Thank you so much for being on my channel. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best. And I hope to see you pop up somewhere else.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Really enjoyed it. Bye-bye.